What is up guys, Coop here, and today we're going to be looking at this really awesome melee build for Fallout 76. So the way that this build is focused on right now is basically with two-handers. However, you can switch out some of the cards for the one-handers. However, I have found that two-handers have a lot better of legendary mods in the future, so just keep that in mind when going forward. But the first thing that we're going to be looking at is Slugger, which basically just increases our damage. It's kind of a no-brainer. You kind of want to max that out. So I chose all three of those of Expert, Master, and Regular Slugger. The next thing you're going to be getting is Martial Artist, as that allows your weight class to be a little bit better. So, you're going to have all these heavy melee weapons with you. Two hands are, known for being a lot more heavier than one-handers, so it's nice having that a little bit of decrease, and also you can swing them a lot faster, making it to where they're very viable. And then the next thing you're going to be getting is Barbarian, which basically just adds a crap ton of damage and damage resistance. So that's going to be really nice. Basically having all that damage resistance is going to be good, especially going forward, because you're going to be most of the time in the fight. Now we're going to add some other things along the way that'll also be increasing our actual damage. So the thing here is right here. We have another thing that increases our damage and gives us damage resistance while not wearing power armor. So this is very much a build where we don't use power armor at all. And then we also have our rad resistance, which isn't so good in the beginning of the game, but at the very end of the game you're going to be dealing with a lot of Scorch Beasts. You're going to be nuking some towns. You're going to have a lot more like different feral ghouls and whatnot. Next is Bodyguards. This is just another really great card to have, as it gives you 12 damage and a bunch of energy resist as well. And then next is obviously Team Medic, which basically allows your stim packs to also heal your friends whenever you use them, which is pretty good when partnered up with Born Survivor, which basically whenever we get around 20%, we automatically use a stim pack every 20 seconds. So the reason that I put so many points into Charisma is because we have now a point of 6, which allows us to be able to share any of our 3-cost cards and lower. And I tried to figure out more ways of getting more points in there to try to see if we could share Bodyguard, but I wasn't able to find any that made it viable. But some cards to mention that are really good, especially for this, is doing things like Action Boy, Marathoner. There's a bunch of little combos you can do in the mix. Next is obviously Makeshift Warrior, which basically allows it to where your weapons don't break down as fast, which is awesome to have because, you obviously want to get all the augment runes and everything into your different weapons. Next is Armorer, which basically gives you better armor. Obviously you're going to want that. Next is Action Boy, which gives all those precious action points that we need to run around and swing with our melee weapon. We already talked about Born Survivor. Marathoner, which makes it to where sprinting costs less action points. Evasive, because we're pretty much maxing out agility, which allows us to get some more damage and more energy resistance in the mix. So makes that really nice going forward. Also White Knight, which allows our armor to break down 90% slower, because we're going to be in the fray, we're going to get hit a lot, and it allows us to make it where it's cheaper. So having better armor and having it to where it hardly breaks down is really nice to have. Next is Serendipity, which basically allows us, when we get at a low percentage of life, that we can get 45% chance to avoid damage. So making it really nice overall there. Next is another thing that increases our overall damage and our energy resistance. So just another way of boosting up our actual sort of damage we got going on. So let's look at how we do it when we're leveling. So this is sort of the level up path. This is what I did when I did the beta. Now you are welcome to change out some of the perk cards and stuff in the mix. I'm using right now falloutbuilds.com. It's a really great website for if you are trying to do your build. And I will leave a link to my personal build in the description down below to help you guys, so that way you don't have to keep watching this video and trying to look back and forth for it. But what I usually do is I do Action Point or Action Boy, and then I do Born Survivor. This is a really good combo in the beginning because you get a little bit more action points, so you can use VATs. During this point you're allowed to use guns and everything. You don't have to just stick to melees the entire time. It allows you to have a little bit more flavor, especially building out your stuff in the future. Born Survivor is always a good one to have because, if you get low, boom, heal yourself up. Eventually later on around this is when you're going to get your melee weapons, so you're going to want to get this fully maxed out to increase that damage. I had Serendipity on there just because, you get a little low sometimes. Around this, I put 2 points into Makeshift Warrior, basically so that way we don't have to worry about or sort of the durability of these weapons breaking down as much, and not to mention this, so that way we can add some different mods that we find out along the way on there without having to sit there and wait until we put a few points in there. So it's nice to have that a little bit early. Next we max out Serendipity, just so that way we don't take as much damage. Next we do Junk Shield, which is basically what we're trying to do is, give us a little bit more damage, since we won't be able to get Slugger for a hot while. And then next is Armor, so this allows us to be able to get some of those nice armor mods on the mix. And then after that is Martial Artist. You want to max this out completely because it makes it to where the weapons cost, or the weapons way less, and then that makes it a lot easier, especially when going forward. You can be able to carry a lot more stuff around this levels when you start to have issues with your inventory. So having this early is really nice. Next is obviously Makeshift Warrior 3. Around this time is when you're going to start seeing mods for that. And next you're going to be working on your Junk Shield, basically just increasing that damage a little bit more, and then you're going to get Barbarian to make it to where your damage resistance is a lot better. Then from there you'll just want to increase all your stuff, add a little bit more of your damage resist, add a little bit more to your weapon stuff, because around this level is when you start to need the 4, and then Marathoner to give yourself a little bit more speed. You can actually change Marathoner with Makeshift Warrior here. That's up to you. I just put Marathoner there because, I like Marathoner. Then I do Ironclad just to increase all my damage. Next, we do another bit of that with some Evasive, just increasing, the damage, resistance, all that type of stuff. White Knight, because around this time is when you're going to be making some really awesome armor, and you're going to want to make sure it doesn't break down as much. And it's all about saving your materials for later things down the line, and what not. Now next after that is I power up Marathoner, so that around this time I have, I'm able to sprint around. And this is when I actually start thinking about players, because around here is when you start focusing on nukes and working with your teams and going into what will be vaults pretty soon. So this is around when I start actually focusing on that, because Bodyguards, while it's nice, unless you are playing consistently in a group, Bodyguards doesn't have that good of an effect. So unless you have a full party, which you will probably have around this time period, because it's all about the nukes and going in with a full party. So that's when I usually do Bodyguards. So I try to max that out as much as possible, but as soon as I saw Team Medic, I got that, and then I maxed out my Master Slugger. So now we're at our maximum amount of damage for our melee weapons. Then I do Bodyguards, and then from there it's at the end of the game, so I just max out pretty much my rad resistance, because most of the time we're going to be dealing with things like Scorch Beasts and bigger creatures and things that use heavy, radiation. And then I put Team Medic in there too, because I had to find one final point to put into something, and I wanted to have a few points in the Charisma so that way I could share some different cards. Now, the things to keep in mind: why would you go with this type of build, especially in a world of guns? Well, in total, you get 150 damage increase, not including the percentage increase you get here of the 60%. So it adds a crap ton of damage, and you just are a massive powerhouse, tanky character. You also have 80 damage resistance. And on top of that, you have 155 energy resistance, which allows it to things like laser turrets and things not to hurt you as much. Then on top of that, you have 48 rad resistance, which allows you to be able to deal with things like Scorch Beasts. Now on top of that, you have better armor, so you are very tanky, and you don't have to worry about repairs as much. Also, whenever you get low on your heals, with the Born Survivor and Team Medic, you also help heal your allies when going in there. On top of that, it makes it to where you're really awesome for the group, because you can make everybody some really good melee weapons. So your friend that's a sniper build, well, give him your maxed out awesome sort of weapon that he can use. So there you go, you make like a tier 5 melee weapon, you hand it off to your sniper friend, and then there he has something for when they get close range. And having the charisma is nice because you're able to share any of the perks that your friends don't have. So, for example, maybe have it to where martial artists, you give it to them, or having things like, for example, Marathoner, everybody runs shortly. Now keep in mind, you don't get this final perk of Team Medic till the very end, so you will have to be careful with what you kind of share, because you won't be able to share anything with 3. For basically every 2 points in charisma, it counts as 1 point card that you can share. So I guess in the meantime, probably one of the best things to do is like Born Survivor and stuff like that, or hell, sharing Team Medic itself. But This thing has a lot of speed, it has a lot of AP, and it's just so satisfying, especially just hitting somebody in the head with a baseball bat and just like getting massive amounts of damage. It's one of the few melee builds out there that really works out fully to its great power, and I highly suggest you guys check this out. I did it during the beta. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't get all the way to full max level, as it does have its own unique flaws, and already somebody in my group was doing this build, but this is the best way to do it without power armor, with just focusing on really awesome melee weapons, and just being able to run around and not have to worry so much about being distant from things, because with your increased running speed and action points, it's just really nice overall. Anyways, I thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.